turning to one of the component parts here, how can custodians and your service providers help asset managers to address some of these challenges? And will it change how you review them? Adam, I'll start with you on that one.
Yeah, I think Jim made a very good point, which is that we've only recently gone through the migration of North American markets. And that is a big learning curve in terms of, the service models. And what I think I would recommend, what we've already done, but what other firms might want to do if they haven't had experience with it before, is make sure they have 24-hour coverage, whereas they may be serviced purely by a European cover as a custodian. Make sure they've also got a North American cover as well, because it's I don't work at a custodian, but they may not be employing people late into the night. They may be passing it on to their US teams, however they work. But just make sure you've got cover. So if you're settling a trade later in the evening, that you've got someone to speak to.
Makes sense. Follow the sun model. Ben, anything to add on that front?
Not too much. No, I agree with Adam. I think I think the custodians, prime brokers, settlement intermediaries do a fantastic job. I think they need to continue to look at the kind of front to back needs of the buy side, and I think they do a good job of that today. Not just the custody, but the middle office, the FX, the whole package. And as T1 develops, they'll need to keep a close eye on that. Around the kind of the future challenges in Europe that Jim described, I think they need to be really advocating as well for that. So more interoperability across the CSDs, more bridges, easier settlement. We do see a lot of issues around dual listed securities. So to the extent that the custodians, who are ultimately the CSD's client, they kind of face off with the CSDs, it would be good, again, to future-proof the market, to see them driving the infrastructure providers in Europe to, get us to a frictionless settlement cycle.
So advocacy is a good part of it. Jim, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, the bulk of the industry is obviously covered by big global custodians already. Adam mentioned some of the maybe smaller players that have more regional or smaller custodians. There's considerations there around your operating model and make sure that you have that coverage across the globe. I think for the big global asset managers with global custody relationships, I don't see it being a kind of key business differentiator. I would imagine that if we get to that kind of harmonized framework, all of those big global custodians will be able to offer all of the services to their asset managers that they need to be able to migrate to a T+1 world in a seamless way. It shouldn't really be a kind of competitive differentiator, whether you're with one big global custodian or another. The idea being, if we work on this together, they should all be able to offer the services needed for us to operate as an industry in a timely fashion. And I think that's the key, is just being able to do what we do already, but do it in a more efficient manner and quicker. Like things like NAV publication or your kind of contract notes on the back of your primary market trades, those kind of things. I would be surprised if the big global service providers aren't able to kind of accommodate that in a way that's very consistent across the board. So I don't really see it. If we do this thing properly, I don't see the T+1 migration becoming a big differentiator at a custody level, but we need to make sure that we can work on it together to make sure that everyone is along and coming along for the journey in the same manner.
Sure.
So for me, that harmonization piece is key.
Sure. Making sure that everybody's on the same page from the asset services side of things is certainly important.